and these aren't produced by Russians. They're produced by, I guess, businessmen who say, why avoid the investment in Russian goods and services when Russia is booming and the United States isn't? So the war plan and the foreign policy that has been part of our world for years has failed.
It's
And,
failed
and
intentionally and been sabotaged too. And that line in the sand with NATO as the protector of Western Europe from communism is now the line that protects Eastern Europe from communism in a lot of ways. There's an irony to that.
mm,
That's the
mm,
ebb and flow of history. And also that one tattoo you were talking about that Hegseth has, the guy that Trump picked for the DOD, the defense secretary, he's also got that sword with the serpent, which is Aleph, which is the exact same symbol that the wolf's hook that the Azov battalion uses in Ukraine. And remember, Zelensky said, he said, Ukraine is a big Israel. And you find that both, it doesn't matter which side of the conflict you're on, both of them are directed at Russia. I think that both sides want that war. Again, hopefully we can expose that fact and bring peace.
but see, Trump. The thing about Trump is how are we going to? I just don't see how we're going to get out of the situation in Russia. And then and like you brought up, the neocons are there, and I mean, if I could go another day without seeing John Bolton on CNN, I'd be a happy man because Bolton is one of the worst.
Yeah.
He's
Who's that other
basically
guy?
the guy that I'd like to throw a rock at if I saw him.
Who's that guy that Trump appointed for the special, what was he called? Special assistant to talk about peace
Attention
in
all.
Ukraine. His name was Brian Crook or Cook or something.
Cook, I believe.
Cook. I forget. I have to look that guy's name up. But he is supposed to go to Ukraine and discuss peace. Yet the guy is not only a neocon war hawk. The guy, as he's discussing peace with Ukraine,
Yeah.
in his back pocket, he's also pushing the U.S. to go to war with Iran. That's the
Can you
guy
do me a
Trump sent to
favor,
talk
some of
about
you
peace.
guys, any of the hosts out there? Could you please bring up the Logan Act? Can somebody bring up the Logan Act for me? Because I have a question about whether or not Donald Trump can go in and negotiate peace right now because he was a president of the United States. And I'm just wondering if the Logan Act will prevent him from doing that or will allow him to do that. Because if he can go in and negotiate peace without being illegal, then that would be because I was thinking about that this today actually, because I was thinking, well, he doesn't have to stand there and allow old man Biden to start a war in Russia. He could the Logan Act. Then I thought, I don't know. I don't know if the Logan Act would prevent him or allow him to go in and
Well,
negotiate
that,
peace.
Clyde,
that's a good point. But they.
Clyde. Oh, sorry.
What, Sarah? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go
I
ahead,
was
Sarah.
going to say that I was looking at the definition, and the key word is unauthorized. It's criminal to do it in an unauthorized fashion. So it depends entirely on whose authority they would consider authorizing somebody. That's going to be the question.
Okay, but Congress didn't authorize. Oh, maybe they did, and we don't know it. But Congress didn't authorize Biden moving the weapons closer to Russia, did he, or did he not?
I'm talking. Well,
That's 25th Amendment stuff. I mean, I'm just saying, if they wanted to, they could say he was crazy and say that it's 25th Amendment stuff. But what I'm looking at here, and I'm probably going to have to look this up. So you say that the Logan Act says that they need to be authorized.
yeah, it's criminal to negotiate for the United States by an unauthorized person.
But
But
if you're president elect, though, I don't think you can make decisions, but you have the
I
authority
think,
to at least discuss it.
well, former president does have a little power to it.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you're
Nope.
right about that, I think.
It's
That's
also
what
ironic.
I'm.
We also said here, I mean, I do too. We always talk about laws, but like, when do these people ever follow the law? They actively engage in constitutional violations like it's a bodily function every single day. I mean, my
I
God,
agree.
Christy Nome in South Dakota, she passed a law that criminalizes any kind of criticism against a foreign power. You got Katie Britt in Alabama, who is discussing with Chuck Schumer in the Senate right now. He's talking about passing the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act that we had talked about, which criminalizes the Bible. It criminalizes criticism of Israel. Trump already signed, when he was president, an executive order that would ban free speech, ban free protest, ban free press on college campuses because it was critical of a foreign power. Like they are actively engaged in dismantling the U.S. Constitution on both sides of the political aisle. And it doesn't really matter what we call ourselves, Republicans, Democrats, like the foundation of this country is under assault.
It's
I have a question.
Sure.
You said unauthorized. It's illegal if you're unauthorized. Then who authorizes him? I mean, the vagaries in our laws, it can be left to any interpretation. So who's going to authorize anybody to go negotiate peace?
But Jackie, wouldn't he be authorized as a former president, or would be acting illegally if he did that? Because I mean, well,
Yes,
he was first on the phone.
He has not been sworn in. The ritual has not been done. So he's not He's going to be president elect, but he's not yet. Technically, Biden still is president, as crazy as that sounds, because nothing official has been done.
There's a transfer of powers document that Trump hasn't signed yet. However, Lavrov, the Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, says that the Biden regime are provoking Russia with missile strikes via Ukraine as proxy. And it's an attempt to, quote, leave as bad a legacy as possible to the incoming Trump administration. But I believe he does technically have the ability. And this question, I find it odd that legacy media really doesn't cover this subject. You have to come to alternative media like here or other places. So it makes me wonder, as in often on journalism, I mean, I produced for a long time for CBS at one time as a stringer producer. And what happens is sometimes you'll have sources, but you don't have enough to broadcast it. So my question is, what's really going on behind the scenes? What do they know that they're not sharing with the public? Because I think it's, again, odd that it's not on the legacy media. It's really calm, but when you see the footage of the bombs, it's really frightening.
You know, you guys saw that. Remember when that one missile that Zelensky's military fired went into Poland and they blamed it on Russia, and it turns out it was a Russian missile originally built, but the Ukrainians fired it. That's the same thing that just happened with the ICBM. They said, "Oh, Russia fired an ICBM." They didn't fire an ICBM. They totally lied about it. And little things like that can get us into war. It doesn't really matter who's making the decisions. A simple lie like that, pushed by the legacy media, like you were saying, can lead us to that. I'm also wondering, you guys ever heard of the Hague Invasion Act? Anybody ever heard of that? So this was passed by George Bush in like 2002, and it basically authorizes the U.S. to use any and all means, or quote, all necessary means, to defend Americans and to defend foreigners who are allies of Americans in the event that the International Criminal Court decides that they want to prosecute somebody on an international level. So this is not like an exaggeration. The U.S. Senate, the incoming majority leader, I don't know if you heard this, Clyde, the incoming majority leader, Thune, along with Cotton, this big Republican hero, and a large number of Republicans, and I think Democrats in general as well, they are backing the Hague Invasion Act from 2002 to invade with boots on the ground, or to, at the very base minimum, engage in acts of war, sanctions against every country that backed the ICC's symbolic action against Netanyahu. This includes Italy, the Netherlands, Spain, Switzerland, which is neutral, Lithuania, Canada, Ireland, South Africa. The list goes on and on. Turkey, Jordan, Norway.
What are they going to do about the Hague? Because the Hague just issued a war criminal edict on Netanyahu.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is the act that protects Americans and allies, and the Republican Senate incoming is saying that they want to invoke that to go to war with every country that backed the ICC. This is how we get a much larger conflict. They're talking about they want to declare war, even if it's a declaration or it's a sanction against Canada, Norway, the Netherlands, Italy, simply because they backed the ICC warrant. Like, this is nuts. This is crazy. This is way more volatile than the Russian situation.
I'll tell you what else is volatile. Do you guys know what's Dr. Oz going to do for Trump? Anybody?
Work for the World Economic Forum.
That's exactly what he is. He's a World Economic Forum stooge. I don't know why people are not saying, "Well, wait a minute, Trump. Why are you putting someone in that's in the World Economic Forum? That's a leader of the World Economic Forum. It's one of the new leaders." I don't know, man. And then I have all my Democrat friends sending me information about how he's also put into some position some of these guys that wrote Project 2025. And all this time I've been saying, it had nothing to do with the campaign, and it didn't. But now I'm wondering if now that Trump is president, they're saying, well, put us into these positions of power, and we'll kind of, sneak under the radar some of this draconian bullshit that they're going to be doing for this Project 2025.
That Linda, what's that woman's name? Linda McMahon, the wrestling woman. Trump put her in charge of the Department of Education. She is also World Economic Forum on their website. You just type in Linda McMahon.
And think about the technicalities, because really Congress can declare war, not the president. And at that, Zelensky, he's technically not really in charge of Ukraine. There's so many weirdities of this entire scenario. Are we talking about this is a kind of a weird deep state type operation that works on a political realm where there are no rules to apply because everything that should be in place isn't in place?
It's mainly because all presidents are temporary employees and have absolutely no power without Congress. They can throw some baller party. That's it.
Congress can,
according to the Constitution, for the president.
Yeah, and Congress can allocate their authority to the president, just like Congress has the authority to coin money, but they can allocate that authority to a private institution like the Federal Reserve too.
Sure.
Boy, I'll tell you.
Do you really see them doing that for Biden? I mean, I don't think they have allocated it to Biden, and I really wonder how many people were fully aware of what when he stated that he was providing the missiles to Ukraine. I mean, it just seemed like a shockwave when it did come out to some Democrats as well as Republicans.
It's just like it's like a musical production. It's all scripted, it feels like, and it's all very organized. I mean, you'll still have people arguing today, oh my God, that Rhode Island has 2 senators and California has 2 senators. Why is that? We need to get rid of this whole thing with the 2 senators. It's like, well, that's what balances out Congress. So there's equal representation for the people and for the states. We still have people arguing about that hundreds of years later. There's people online that are saying Project 2025 is a law. It's not a law. I don't think even people in Congress understand how the government is supposed to work. I mean, there were members of Congress when Ron Paul was in Congress. He said that when they voted and had discussions on going into Iraq, that there were people in Congress who didn't even know where Iraq was on a map. This is what Ron Paul said. I don't think people in government even know how the government is supposed to work. I would bet you everything I own and would make in my life that you can find 1 out of maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 of those members of Congress, senators and congressmen and women, that have never even read the Constitution. And it's probably more than that. I mean, our country is acting in a lawless way. We are basically the crumbling Roman Empire in real time, and those emergency authorities the president has granted himself, it overrides Congress. I mean, it's basically a dictatorship. The Constitution has been suspended for a long time. My opinion.
I read recently that like Obamacare is 5,000 pages, and one of the things that's being put forth by Dodge is the requirement that bills have to be somewhat like a tweet. It was compared to Twitter, how you're only allowed so many words when you write a bill. And based on what you just said, Ryan, I think that's part of the problem is there are things being written in a way that are so discombobulated and confusing. That's the intent.
Well, and so thick that there is not time to read it. That was the whole thing with the Obamacare bill whenever it went through, was that most senators didn't even have time to read the bill. It was so voluminous. And that's just it. When you have basically a propped up 2-party system, I mean, it's a lean-to of a political system as far as choices go, I'd like to be able to choose a Fanta or a root beer or maybe a Sprite or 7 Up, something other than red or blue of Coke and Pepsi, you know. But these things have been driven into us, you know.
Look at
Us versus them, point a finger and blame them across the trees mentality, you know.
Did you guys hear what Vivek Ramaswamy said about the wars? I thought he was I thought he was educated. Did you guys hear that stuff he said recently about the war?
No, I didn't hear what he said.
He said, George, this is a quote. George, this is what George Washington would want us to do. He would want us to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. I mean, it doesn't matter who the people are. Just the most standard George Washington history is that George Washington was like the ultimate non-interventionist. These people are taking founding fathers and one of the first people to ever give up that level of power in government and saying he would want us to commit genocide. What the F is wrong with these people?
George Washington's farewell address, he basically stated, I'm paraphrasing, stay out of foreign affairs.
That's it. You're right.
Oh, that's been
right.
That's been the mantra for, everything I read that the founding fathers have ever talked about was that, in fact, they even talked about back then the Muslim problem was a Muslim problem and the Jewish problem was a Jewish problem. And they were saying that, what's the point of getting involved in foreign affairs of which we do not understand? And I can promise you this, people have this ingrained hatred for either or, and they don't have a political dog in the hunt for no apparent reason than just because they want to save face with their conservative allies or whoever. Listen, I have said this and I say this, and I think this is what's more important. You can't let a people suffer at the hands of their leadership.
No.
We have bad leaders in this world right now that are just basically leading people to slaughter. And you blame Israel and say, well, Israel this, Israel that. No, it's Netanyahu this, it's Netanyahu that. It's Putin this, it's Putin that. It's Zelensky this, Zelensky that. We need to somehow clip the wings of these people and somehow go in and say, listen, I don't know what you guys think, but your wars are unpopular. I mean, look, we did this with voting in Trump. Okay, we said we're tired of woke. We're tired of all this other nonsense. We're tired of focusing on these small marginal individuals with LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, and all these things. We said, okay, we're tired of that shit. We need to do the same thing with the war effort. We need to say, listen, there's no reason for us to be at war only because you're doing a dick wagging contest and you guys are basically relics of the Cold War and you just want to take it out on everybody because this is your last hurrah. Screw that. Go in, negotiate peace, get it over with, and let's stop killing each other. But no, it's gonna. They feel they get a lot of political mileage out of this, and the truth of the matter is that nobody wins. Nobody's going to win.
There's no money in that.
I know.
There's no money.
I mean, who are we going to sell F-35s to? We have enough of them.
Yeah, I know.
Right. You have to create the conflict and create the need for the product that you're producing, whether that's an ideology or a physical product. You're right.
I mean,
bullets.
Emmanuel Goldstein, baby.
Hey,
gotta create the need and the want.
Clyde, we have Vinny Eastwood in. And,
hey, Vinny. What's up, buddy?
Where'd you go?
I am right here. I'm totally here, guys.
You missed it when you were doing the introduction, and now you're here. We want to hear from you and, hear about your show, hear about you, hear about what's going on with you.
Well, first thing I wanted to say was a quote from Jefferson. It says that a patriot's duty is to protect his country from his government. And that's what we're talking about here, isn't it? Ultimately, at the end of the day, because if there's some enormous dick-wagging competition on and you're talking about people shouldn't be killing each other. No. People are murdering each other. Killing is okay. You're right. Like that's all right. But murder, no. I'm afraid that puts you square on the naughty list for Christmas this year. And so I am Vinny Eastwood, host of the Vinny Eastwood Show. I've been broadcasting and doing YouTube videos since 2008 about basically every single topic you can imagine, from paranormal stuff and crazy things, and also just the down-to-earth business of finding out the truth in a society full of lies. And I've been called the conspiracy therapist, which I think is a fairly apt moniker, because I tend to have the idea that if you use humor and you give people hope and you give people a chance to speak and you make them feel safe, that's when the best conversations can happen. That's when you can learn the most, and that's when you can come away from a show feeling refreshed rather than freshly traumatized.
Exactly right. Where are you at right now, Vinny?
I am on my deck. Look at the size of it.
Excuse me, sir.
Got a big deck there.
I know the ladies love it. Just they like to sit on it from time to time. Now
Bump.
I do need a snare drum in studio. I must say.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I think you're fine with that one. Speaking of penis jokes, I just
Oh, really?
I just
There we
was
go.
learning.
You see, this is what happens.
I
when you
almost had a
inject Vinny
serious
Eastwood.
comment.
Yeah, this is what happens when you inject Vinny Eastwood into a conversation. I'm sorry.
Hey, do you know how to spatchcock a turkey?
I do not. But however,
I
I just read an article about the gay couple who rebranded the English car company Jaguar, and it turns out that their pet is named a cockpoo.
A cockpoo.
Yeah, two gay men and a cockpoo. You can't. You try as you might. You can't make this shit up.
Like, before I came on tonight, I was watching videos on how to spatchcock a turkey. I had never known what a spatchcocking was until I learned that you go in, you remove the backbone, and then you break the back of the turkey. It's called spatchcocking. Now, back when I was a kid, we called it butterfly.
Brokeback Thanksgiving.
Yeah, brokeback turkey is what it is.
I thought we called that the Federal Reserve Act.
Yeah,
I'm aware
something
of
like
that, but I didn't know it had a name.
What? Spatchcocking?
Yes, I didn't know it had a name.
Breaking
I'm
the
like,
back.
you made that up.
No, it's quite a. They say that it takes about 2 hours off your cooking time.
Yep.
The only thing is you can't
You're double Dutch rudder in it.
You can't stuff a spatchcock turkey. So
do you have to go to Spatula City first?
Spatula City.
You can actually put your breading underneath, your stuffing underneath, and then put the two parts on top of it.
Right.
So
Okay.
you put a can of beer in there.
I've seen that before. Putting a can of beer in the hole.
Yeah.
That's kind of sick.
I'm
That's kind
Cajun.
of like
We invented
abusive.
the turducken.
I was gonna
Turkey
talk about
doesn't mind.
Is that a beer
What do you
song?
think of
99
the
beers in the
turducken?
turkey?
What do you think of the turducken?
Turduckens are awesome.
You like them?
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I just don't like the duck.
There's a classic YouTube
It's
video
greasy.
where the turkey
Lasagna.
turducken is stuffed, and they prank the family, the daughters, with it, and they pull the little one out, and they said that she was pregnant. The kids go wild.
Oh, I've seen that before. Where you take a Cornish hen, and you stuff it in the turkey, and then you bring it out. You sit down and you cut into the turkey, and all of a sudden you see this little baby one inside. So, oh my God, it was pregnant.
It's terrible.
And it's like, come on, guys. I mean, how stupid are you? It's an egg. They lay eggs.
Yes. And of late, I think
And that's why we have this many wars.
Yeah. And that's why wars are declared.
Well, I was thinking we're on a cycle, right? There's war and economic crisis and the release of a disease and an election and something like that. It's just a cycle. They mix it up every time. When one story gets old, they come up with a new one to keep everybody in a constant state of paralyzed fear. Federal Reserve Act, the stock market goes down. Oh, well, people get tired of that. Let's have a Spanish flu. Okay, people get tired of that. Let's have World War One. Okay, people get tired of that. Let's have the Great Depression. People get tired of that. Let's have World War Two. People get tired of that. Let's have typhoid. So on and so forth. until people get. I think it was Richard M. Harth who said an aura of endless threat. And an interesting thing happens to the brain when you're constantly surrounded by threat is your thinking turns off. You know, you're stuck in your emotions, or you're stuck in fight or flight or something like that, and your prefrontal cortex is basically disabled because you're in fight or flight mode.
Yeah.
And that's how you can get an entire population to basically stop thinking for generations at a time.
One of the studies that I have actively been talking about and like hammering home on my show was the National Institute of Health, just at the end of COVID, released an actual study showing that negative news cycles cause bruising damage to the hypothalamus of the brain.
Yeah, in Russia, they had a metric. They said that if you can plug the airwaves for 6 weeks solid with a threat that's going to kill everybody, it'll actually change the public consciousness entirely. And
was that the one they said it would like change people's perception of time? The
I'm
same
not.
one?
I'm not certain, but on flow from that, one thing that they were having a big problem with during communism was schizophrenia, because people would have to, if you're an anti-communist and you live in a communist regime and you work for the communist government, every time you go to work and you put on your little uniform, you have to pretend like you're a good communist. And then when you come home and you take off the uniform, you have to try and remind yourself that you're not a communist. And it started to make people go crazy because they were trying to live two different lives.
Kind of the way it was with COVID, right? You go out, you'd wear your mask, you do everything you're told, come home, fuck the mask, fuck this, I'm going to do whatever I want. I just, it just bothered me the way I was looking at some of the things that they came up with that would try to combat it. Like the biggest stupid thing for me that I noticed was it was the bar thing. In bars in Portland, they said, well, bars have to close at 10 o'clock. Well, why is that? Does COVID come out after 10? And then they said, well, you can't have people together in the bar. So what did they do? They took outside and they put tents outside so they could create another bar outside, which didn't make any sense because people could gather together in close proximity to each other outside, but they couldn't do it inside the bar. So they had to go and make this outside tent situation. And it just, and also the plastic up where people had plastic up between I remember riding in lift cars and taxis, and they had plastic everywhere. And I'm like thinking, you really think that, this is going to protect you from COVID? You're a moron. And they kept pushing certain things that people would do. And I mean, if they said, jump on one leg and fart every morning would get rid of COVID, I think people would do it.
Do you remember that article from the New England Journal of Medicine where I think that most of them were doctors, maybe some other types of scientists. They wrote that, I think this was in 2021, they said that a mask was nothing more than a talisman. They actually used that old magical term, that it was a talisman to make people feel a certain way, to play on. This was the New England Journal of Medicine that published this. That's crazy.
It's like saying that a condom is going to stop HIV. A condom is there to stop a sperm. It is not going to stop something the size of a virus. The pores in it will not allow that. That's why
it's a great example.
Not a solution for HIV. Doesn't prevent HIV.
No, and what Clyde, you just said there about the tents, I think that's a great example of going back to what we were saying a few minutes ago about our leaders understanding or caring to follow the actual law. Because if you read James Madison, who's one of my favorite founding fathers, I love the stuff that James Madison wrote for the most part. Madison said that the goal of government was not to pass bunches and bunches and bunches and bunches of laws. The goal of government was to maintain the rule of law as it was established in the constitutional republic, and that a law should be very difficult to pass. It should not be something that is done every day and deliberated on every day. It's something that's meant like maybe a couple every generation. Like it's not something that's supposed to happen like it does today, and certainly not in the capacity of 5,000 to 10,000 pages that are crammed into a congressman's box overnight. And that really is again, going back to your example about the tents, Clyde, it's all about the theater of we're in charge, we're doing something about it, don't worry, we're putting up the plastic, we're in charge, we're doing something about it, don't worry, we're having resolutions and we're having conversations in Congress. It's just
they call that safety theater. That's safety theater. There's no such thing as truly safe. I mean, they were even saying that TSA is not as effective as it was in the beginning. That it's not. We really don't need TSA anymore, but we had TSA. Yeah.
I at one point pre-COVID traveled 35, 40 weeks a year for my work. Literally got pulled over in DC at TSA. 5 police officers start coming up. They start asking me questions, pulled me aside for about an hour, started tossing my bag, found 5 rounds of 22 ammunition.
Oh my God.
I had not been to the range in 7 months since I purchased that 22 pistol. For 7 months, those bullets were jangling around in my backpack in a hidden little compartment in the back for 7 months.
Yeah, I had a keychain.
Everything going through the detector every other week, coming out of Austin, going somewhere in the country, coming back 3 times to DC. You know, like, yeah.
Worthless.
It's a show. It's a show.
Worthless waste of money and resources. And as actually to your
Take my
story,
multi-tool, let me keep the ammo.
You know what the international travel is in Tokyo? International travel, the busiest, probably one of the busiest airports in the world. The airport security for international flights is you walk through a metal detector, you don't take your shoes off, and then a Japanese girl looks at you and says, "You're good," and then bows to you and you leave. And they never have any hijacked planes in Japan. Not that never happens there. There's obviously a deeper reason for that.
Yeah.
They never have hijackings in Israel either, because they have a very strict training protocol. You know, when you're about to do something naughty and there's an expression on your face that can be read and can be noticed, they train people to look for that stuff. Yeah. And so goodness knows how many attempts they've been, but none have been successful up to this point. And I was just thinking about how the naked body scanners came in after the underwear bomber, and I had one of the guys who was on the plane, trained lawyer, sitting right behind the underwear bomber, and he was part of the court case, just sort of like sitting there in the gallery and just watching this sort of farce play out. And then the government just brings in these naked body scanners everywhere, irradiating people, sterilizing them, giving them cancer, and that kind of thing. And the guy who was pushing that was a guy named Michael Chertoff. And one day I woke up in the morning and I was like, Michael Chertoff, naked body scanners. Chertoff with his shirt off. Again, you can't.
And Chertoff, the co-author of the Patriot Act, conveniently.
Well, there you go. I did not know that.
And a dual
citizen.
Doesn't
Chertoff mean devil in some language? I don't know. I just thought I had read somewhere that Chertoff means like demon.
Maybe
guess.
Derek can find out.
This is another thing. Everybody knows the name Kardashian, right? But how many people by comparison know the name Chertoff, right? This is the thing. We've kind of been gone into this celebrity culture, and maybe there's something to be said for making celebrities of the evildoers because they thrive on anonymity.
You know, I'm wondering what all of you guys think, whether you're a host or you're not a host. I don't know what everybody's opinions are about this kind of stuff, but you know, I see like Justin Bieber, supposedly a Christian now. Kanye West was a Christian for a little bit, then he became a porn actor, and then he moved to Tokyo. And then you got Russell Brand, who the World Economic Forum is promoting. Read his book. It's the best book, The Revolution, but he's supposedly a great Christian now. You ever feel like maybe the whole thing about, like the New World Order and fighting the New World Order and the deep state and the Illuminati, and for years it was no digital currency, no vaccines, no microchips. And now we have a country that elected a guy who pushed the vaccine, who put basically second or third in command a guy who's building microchips and supercomputers and autonomous vehicles. And then we have a country that is on both sides of the aisle completely infiltrated by a foreign government. Like, don't you think maybe we voted for the deep state? Maybe the deep state or the New World Order or the Illuminati said, people are getting too wise to what's going on. Let's just co-opt both sides and take control of everything. Kind of that general theme. Like I think that these actors are sort of, and these actresses that supported Harris are clearly paid. But what about the people that are on the right wing? You really think that they're all independent and free-minded and thinking, and they're all believing in Christ now? I just don't buy it. I think a lot of it, almost all of it, is a con. What do you guys think?
Well, a little
I've
bit of
become
that
cynical.
is going back to your speaking there with the names. We had the huge scandal, Epstein Island, and I'm kind of rednecky. And when I look at the name of his au pair who was pulling these, her name's Ghislaine, but it looks like Ghislaine. Is the Matrix doing that to me? With these weird names and things like that? But of course, and it rolls into a scandal. Look at all these weird names we see that pull into our lives all the time.
Like Bankman, like Sam Bankman, the
What?
con
Yeah.
artist.
Yeah. What do you say? Is it okay? Is my controller for my in the controller in the Matrix who's running me? Is he give up, and I'm now getting just the standard responses? It seems too easy sometimes when you tie these names to the people who are doing the wrongdoing.
Well, look at
or
the guy that shot
weirdness.
Trump. His name was Crooks.
What? Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah, that's
sir.
the same. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. There's this dynamic called the law of big numbers, where things with an astronomical chance of occurring do occur because there's so many things happening all the time that it's inevitable that some crazy coincidence will happen. For example, in I believe it was 1896, in the entire state of Ohio, there were only 2 automobiles, and they crashed into each other.
Twice.
Oh, by the way, Chertoff does mean demon in Russian.
No kidding.
Good tough.
It's Chortov, Chort meaning devil, off meaning female. So it means female demon.
That's quite interesting. I didn't know that, Clyde.
Yeah. I have crazy stuff in my Rolodex that I throw out every once in a while. So,
But,
yeah.
but it's also
And a chortle is
a
kind of like a
masculine
chuckle,
name, not
but is that a
female name.
demon chuckle?
Chuckle what?
I said a chortle is kind of like a chuckle, but is that a demon chuckle?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's just like with what we talked about. I did a show on it too. The Kamala Harris's name. I mean, Devi is literally a goddess who kills an elephant, which is the symbol of Republicans, at the end of the world and bathes in its blood and laughs out loud hysterically. Like, you can't make that up.
No.
Oh, this is another thing. The terms, right? You notice how new terms come into the lexicon. Q,
Mass formation, psychosis.
These kind of things. I had somebody accused me of being part of the deep
Trigram.
state today. Supporting the deep state, which I thought quite interesting because I thought
How's their
whole
healthcare plan?
Yeah, I thought the whole deep state term in and of itself was just sort of like a manufactured thing, right? As in, all of a sudden now, all these people who are allegedly, truthers and things like that, they now just start thinking that using a terminology makes them somebody who is capable of discerning truth. And that is just simply not the case. You have a very simple process, but it's hard to implement when it comes to verifying facts according to the basic rules of journalism. And there's a caveat on this: the mainstream media does not practice journalism. Right, so this is how you do it. You ask the questions who, what, when, where, how, and why. That's how you get a piece of information locked down. You get answers to those questions, sort of like making sure that there's a three-dimensional object. There's also 6 questions. Does it have a top, down, left, right, back, and front? And if you've got those information tidbits all lined up, and you've got 3 sources who don't know each other, who can verify that, then you can go off and say something is the truth with pretty reasonable accuracy and confidence. But what is happening now is people will just throw off the first accusation that comes to mind. There is no discernment, there is no research, there is no logic. And so when people go off and they support Trump, who I've done a little bit of research into, so you're going to support a guy who's a former money man to the Jewish mafia of New York, the Mylansky mob, who are laundering all their money in his casinos. This is who you think is going to save you from the Jewish conspiracy, right? I don't think so. There's so much hope invested in it. And I remember back in the day, how you get suckered in and then you don't get suckered again. Or in the words of George Bush, you fool me, you can't get fooled again.
Put some food on your family plate.
With the election of Obama, I'm like, oh great, he's promising to end the illegal no end in sight wars. He's going to stop the illegal wiretapping, and then the guy drops more bombs in his first term than George did in his first presidency.
And operated black
on
sites,
his own people.
My stepson does a great impersonation of Obama, saying things like, "Well, we're Americans. We're very happy, and let's bomb a hospital."
That's pretty much it. You guys remember the George Carlin bit about how it's just a big prick waving contest? He said, not only the bombs shaped like pricks, but you got all these people in charge: Dick Cheney, Colin Powell, George Bush.
Wow.
Yeah, true.
And this comes down to the point where people have got so much hope invested in this image of Trump. They actually think things are going to change. Whereas in the first Trump presidency, what did he do in his first 90 days in office? I believe he passed close to, 180 presidential directives, just things just passed, don't read them, don't know what they are. Or anything
executive
like
orders, or do you mean
executive orders? That was the terminology I was trying to do there. Yeah, sorry, it's late night in New Zealand. It's like 4:30 in the afternoon. Now have that kind of concept now between the discernment of people who actually know how to verify whether or not somebody is legit, and the oversprung hopefulness of people who've only just stumbled upon the truth, which is a very traumatic thing to do. And you start to grasp for anything you can to help you keep your sanity and keep your hope and things of that nature. And the New World Order is all too willing to supply a messiah.
That is very well said, Vinny. Very well said.
It's true. I agree with that.
Yeah.
The cats are like doing all kinds of things in here tonight. I don't know.
Hey, Derek, if you're still listening, you should bring up those points in the chat. Those are other good names to bring up.
What names were those?
I didn't even think of this one. It's a good point by Derek. He said, during the pandemic, one of the guys that came out against germ theory was named Kaufman.
That's pretty funny.
I gotta tell you guys, I've been troubled by this for a long time. I thought I was losing my mind, and I thought that, yeah, my player had given up on me in the Matrix. My batteries were running low. There are a ton of names that are just absolutely appropriately inappropriate for our times and the situations.
They're all made up. All those people, all their names, they're all orchestrated to deceive you.
I know a dentist named Dr. Decay.
I think personally, I've been deceived, and I think millions of others are being deceived right now. And I think also that what everybody thinks that voted for Trump was going to happen is not going to happen.
No, I agree. I
think we're going to have like 3 years apiece. And I'm going to get a little bit of glue on you because I got in a whole lot of trouble with a lot of my listeners because it was literally the day after the election. I'm watching a young gal that I like her videos. She's very informative, very nice young lady. And it woke me up and I'm like, fuck, did I just vote for the Antichrist?
Oh, yeah.
But not the Antichrist, but possibly the first beast. And then I started looking at all the patterns of what was Trump was doing like immediately after the election and how the whole world just woed him and followed him and he survived the gunshot, shot to the head. And I'm like, this is too much for me, man. Go to the lake.
I'm sorry, JP. Go ahead.
No, I'm good, man. That was all I had to say, really.
Well, I remember getting all those emails from people saying, well, doesn't he have a wound to the head and then he like goes into a coma and then comes back or something? And I'm like going, I think that's we're reading a lot of stuff into this that really shouldn't be read into.
Well, we could be, but the scripture actually says, and I have it right here, as it were, meaning the head of the beast were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and the world wandered after the beast. So it's not saying he actually got killed and was resurrected. It's saying that as if he was fatally shot or fatally wounded to the head. I mean, so that kind of freaked me out for a guy that was so outspoken for Trump and really stumped for Trump. And, I like my business flourished.
Kind of like
was
aneurysm.
president. Yeah, my business did really well when Trump was president. And that, after 4 years of this hell with what we've been all been going through, I'm like, man, this could be the relief we all need. And then it was literally like after the election, I'm like, oh my God.
Well, if you think about it from the point of view of like movies, I think we all would agree what made Star Wars really good. I mean, maybe you didn't like Star Wars, but at least like the story. It was based on the traditional archetypical characters.
Joseph Campbell.
Right? Joseph Campbell, that's right.
Yeah.
And Lucas even, he had said that, and Campbell said Lucas was one of his best students. He inherently, fundamentally understood those archetypes. I think that's really what's happening here. I think that these people, many of them are actually Hollywood type people in both the media and in government and so on. They're utilizing these archetypes. I mean, if you think about it, you don't have to account for the Jewish people, which represent a super small percent of the population. Muslims comprise about 2.3 roughly billion people. Christians are about 2.4 billion. You're looking at over half of the world's population who at base minimum have had at least introductory information fed to them about these concepts of the end of the world, the apocalypse, Armageddon, the Antichrist. And there are plenty of people, like I'm not a Christian. I did grow up Christian, but I'm not a Christian now. And I know those things. And a lot of people that aren't Christian or Muslim know about these things. So when you've got over half the world who believes that, and you can play on those archetypes, I think in the unconscious, it activates something. And so people think that this is going to happen, that we're literally going to have an Armageddon-like battle, or like Left Behind, there's going to be guillotines on the street cutting people's heads off, because that's what the Christian propaganda has shown us. I think it's the archetypical characteristics that are being played on, and they've been played on by, everybody said Obama was the Antichrist, Trump's the Antichrist, Biden's the Antichrist, Reagan was the Antichrist, Hitler was the Antichrist, because that is what sells.
Everybody's the Antichrist.
Everybody gets a car, everybody's the Antichrist.
That's just it.
You get a car. You get a car.
You get your head cut
You
off.
get an
your head cut off.
antichrist. You get an antichrist.
We all
Hail
get
Satan.
Antichrist.
You get an antichrist.
Think about it now, guys. We're getting a Dr. Oz.
It's the White Album.
That's a good point.
We're getting Dr. Oz.
It's medicine, alchemy, Wizard of Oz. We're
Right.
getting it. Y'all
Great
talk
point,
about names
Jackie.
fitting it.
Yeah, is anybody gonna go see Wicked? I'm just kidding.
Who said that, Jackie?
Yeah, Jackie said that was Wizard of Oz.
I might do a show and I talk about these names. I'm going to give you credit for that. I didn't think of that one. That's good.
The Wizard of Oz.
World Wars were launched right after the release of The Wizard of Oz. It's happened a couple times now.
Yeah, it's mind control, man. Tell you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, man, everybody.
Did you know, though? Here's a true fact that what was it? After Fantasia was released in theaters, that's when people saw Mothman in Point Pleasant.
Oh, wow.
And if you remember Night on Bald Mountain,
Yep.
the bit with the huge demon.
Yeah.
It looked like a Mothman type character. They patterned him after Bela Lugosi, actually. Bela Lugosi actually posed for some of the pictures for what was the name? What's his name? Something white guy, Chernabog. He posed for the character Chernabog, which is in some languages Cernabog, which is about CERN, or the idea of the demon below.
You know that there. I don't think I mentioned this in the show that you and I did the other night about Keck, Clyde.
Yeah, Keck.
But Keck, same spelling, is also a Japanese super collider like CERN that they're utilizing to study the other world, essentially, or the abyss where Keck comes from. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's more of those words messing up our matrix.
They just released a Keck Bitcoin.
Did
Oh, they
he?
did?
I heard
Yeah,
about
it just
that,
came
yeah.
out last week. It's flopping too.
My guest was kind of last night talking about the frequency he was getting from Starliner, and he was saying that it was the A342, or I think that's what it is,
Or 32.
432, sorry, A432, and he said that signals to what he believes are the Aeneid, the nine gods above the planets. And it was really interesting what he was having to say. He even brought up the Ogdode, which I thought was weird, um, because we were talking about it with Dr. Heldor. But yeah, it's strange stuff going on, and it's like it's hard to put down sometimes. And sometimes I wonder, there's so many details that we don't talk about, and I just wonder if we're missing out by not going to those fine details. But the audience is not going to put up with that. I think when they look around and they see the wars going on and everything, that just pisses me off because it's the fine details that I think make some of this stuff fascinating, and it's just hard to convey that to an audience.
Well, it's
And
kind
the
of
flip side
science,
is, what about Occam's razor? I mean, is it a flat earth or is it a spear? Is it the simplest explanation? Is it part of what's happening in terms of reacting rather than being in the moment? Is that we tend to occupy ourselves with a lot of smaller details. And quite frankly, there are some answers we're not going to get till it's done.
Yeah, I remember
Barbane,
one time
I
on
agree
a
with
show.
you totally on that too. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
we're getting wrapped up. So the deep state controlling people are wrapping us up with details and just twisting our minds left and right and left and right. And we come to a place like this where this is a ground zero gig, and I'm gonna call myself a zero. Us zeros just listen to figure stuff out.
Well, apropos of that, I remember one time I was on an American talk show and they asked me, "So, Vinny, give it to us straight. Is the Earth flat or is it round?"
Yeah.
And I went, "Well, I think it's a holographic fractal that's being projected by collective consciousness experiencing itself subjectively." and 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 they were like, "Well."
I always tell them that the Earth's geoidal shaped. I just say it's like a bent pear. They don't want to tell us the truth. It just looks like a beat up pear.
As a former seminarian, I normally just say, "So we're both in agreement with the original Catholic Church." Back to burnings.
It's the taboo subject
Bring
for
in the
most hosts.
Inquisition.
That's like one you don't want to take on as flat Earth. It goes nowhere.
I did it one time, and I did say it was a geoidal planet, and no one knew what that meant. I said, "Look it up. It's toroidal. It's geoidal. It's a donut. Figure it out."
Yeah.
2025. There's expedition to the Antarctic. It's consisting of 2 flat earthers and 2 globe earthers to finally settle the debate once and for all.
I thought they already did that, Mike. They're doing that.
They're getting it all planned out. It's starting in, I believe, our summer. Or not our summer, but the Antarctic summer. So it'll be next year, this time of year.
Well, at least they got that part right. That's good.
The big secret about flat earthers is their goal is not to convince you to believe the earth is flat. Their goal is to convince you that they believe the earth is flat.
I love that.
Right. Yeah, and I think the flat earth thing is catching on around the world right now. And crickets.
No.
Well, I thought about this.
We're classy there.
It could be, after transgenderism, that's the next stage, where you just paint your hair like a globe, but you make your haircut look flat. It could be something like that.
Because the world is round, it turns me on.
Yeah, I mean that's hence the introduction to my show. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and hermaphrodites.
So was it Sarah? Sarah nailed it when she said and I'm paraphrasing her, but we've done this complete circle where these ladies that are shaving their heads look like Cabbage Patch dolls. So when they were young kids, they were collecting them. Now they are them.
Now they are them.
There you go.
Get me off this planet.
Well, at 64, the longer I live, the less I know.
Right.
It's just, and no offense to anyone, but there are different processes that occur in the brain as you go through different ages, and you look at those perspectives and you just embrace it because you've been there. But at the same time, you look at all the shit and like I've cut the cable, I read the news, I go seek it out, etc. But for the most part, if it gets too complicated, I'll stick in my horror movies or something. It's like I gotta let my brain rest. This is an exercise into self-abuse.
Yeah, you know what, that's beautiful for like I said, like a zero listener like me. It's that's where we're at. Kind of. I'm 52, and I'm starting to feel it. Also, it's like sci-fi don't hit so hard.
Yeah.
Is you want more paranormal or more occult, but you've already kind of been through it, and now it seems like all we're getting is this political fuckery, and it's a little bit maddening.
Well, I was looking. I was just looking today at the word catharsis, and it's to process an emotion, right? And what happens is when you're watching end of the world movies or superhero movies or something like that, there's two parts of your brain that can click on potentially. One is better you than me, and the other is, man, what am I worried about? Right, and you get out of the theater after watching people get the hell beat out of them, or watching their worlds be destroyed or something, and you go out and you go to JC Penney's and you get yourself a new TV or something like that, and you're like, you know what, this stuff isn't that bad. That's that's how catharsis.
Yeah,
that's how catharsis works, right? And I think that there's an element that's happening within the truth movement as well. What if somehow the audience is actually like us when we're interviewing these people, voyeuristically experiencing their pain, their trauma, their suffering, and things of that nature, because it's worse than ours. It makes us feel better with the lot in life we've got. It's like the old saying that if you got everybody in a circle and threw their problems in the center, you'd be surprised how quickly you would be to pick up your own problems.
Well, it's kind of like maybe in the future they'll think that The Exorcist was a comedy.
Well, I mean, okay. I once did a segment where I talked about how you take a look at, what is it? Oh, Dracula, for example. Okay, Dracula, vampires. They used to be demons and bloodsuckers and terrifying. Now they're misunderstood and they're longing for love, and like Twilight, and so Interview with the Vampire. They're misunderstood. It's a heartbreaking story. We feel sympathy for the vampires and whatever. Now we have a vampire serial called Count Chocula. We have a Muppet that loves to count. We have a Muppet that loves to count. It's called The Count. We have an amusement park in Transylvania dedicated to Dracula. We have a tourist thing for Dracula. And I said, what about 500 years down the and Frankenstein's monster is another one. Like, it was back in the 1700s. Frankenstein's monster is now, kind of like Santa Claus in a way. It's like, people aren't as afraid of Frankenstein's monster. And I said, what if in the future, like 500 years from now, you have Hitler and he's like a misunderstood person. We have a cereal named after him called Fatherland Flakes. They have little marshmallows floating in the milk.
Springtime for Hitler.
Yeah, springtime for Hitler. You go to this amusement park and you get to you can get through the tunnel.
You can it's not Disneyland.
The ovens are there. You can go participate
it's called,
in the oven trips.
Well,
it's called Reichland.
No, it's either called Reichland or Fatherland or Arbeit macht frei. I don't know.
Like
Really?
Well, they already named a restaurant after that called Sizzlers.
Arbeit macht Six Flags over Stukas over Disneyland. I don't know, but yeah, I could just see that 400 years down the road is where we look back at the horrific people in the world, and they become less horrific because of the barbarism that we're experiencing today. The barbarism just gets worse and worse and worse and worse till it's just that's something I just worry about.
Well,
I see a-
That everyone should be required to watch Mel Brooks movies. I think that is the psychological touchstone. If you can get through those and you have a sense of humor, then you're okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as we talked about Frankenstein, the first thing that came to my mind was
the two things that always come to my mind are the Junkions from Transformers and Flight of the Navigator. The aliens that come and like they've only been exposed to our transmissions, but they have zero frame of reference as to what they're about. So it's like, imagine that you're a uber intelligent civilization, and for hundreds of years you're catching all of our transmissions, war, news, comedy, everything, but zero frame of reference as to the culture that they're actively.
Well, Game of Thrones just passed the nearest, just past Neptune, I guess. So Game of Thrones is out there being watched by the aliens now. So they think that we fly around on dragons and stuff.
They get to see just a season of Wang.
Yeah.
You can see that even here on Earth, though, between different countries. Like if you go to a different country, totally different comedy, things out of context that otherwise aren't funny are funny in another country, and they're not here.
Well, even
they have those Japanese humiliation shows. Did you see any of those when you were there?
Oh my God.
No, but I can say the news is very similar to a show like that, though. All I can remember is the Family Guy, where like 50 years in the future, Peter thinks that he's got like a son or something, but he's still on the game show and he loses.
I remember traveling in Europe in '93. I had a University of Dallas hat, and I was everybody's friend because they were just getting the show Dallas in 1993. Like in the subways of Paris, were like, "Who shot JR?" and stuff like that. Like, whoa, this is.
When I was in South America, all the popular bands that we listened to in the 70s were mega popular in Argentina. So you had Queen, Styx, Kiss, Rush. All these bands were huge in Argentina. And so they named their clubs after these bands. And so there was a Kiss club. You go to the Kiss club and hang out at the Kiss club. Or they had the Styx club. And I remember one day we were stopped by these two guys standing on the road, and they said, "Hey, come into our club." And we go, "Okay." So we came into the club and hung out, and there was nobody in the bar. Nobody was there. We were just hanging out in the bar, and the one guy was saying, "So what do you think of our bar?" I said, "Oh, it's really nice. What's it called?" "Queen." I said to him,
They do the same thing in Korea. And in Itaewon, in downtown Seoul, there's a bar called the Bunghole.
Oh my God. And yeah, they didn't understand why nobody was coming into their bar because they called it Queen. They said, "Queen's popular. What? Why do we call it Queen?" And I'm like, because you guys don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like the manhole. Let's call it the manhole.
Or manholes plural.
Manholes. There was actually a gay bar in Utah called the Booby Trap. I thought that was kind of funny. A booby trap.
Well,
but
like a strip club.
What's that? A strip club.
It's a strip club.
It should be. But it's
in
not.
Earl Pitts, there was a comedian who did stand up in this caricature, and his regular bar he would hang out at was called the Dewdrop. But occasionally they would refer to this fictitious gentleman's club that was called the Booby Trap.
Oh, well,
it may be real.
Well, yeah, there was in Salt Lake. It was in fact it was the first building that was taken out by the tornado. That's why they called it the gay tornado. It's because the tornado touched down in Salt Lake City back in, what was it, 1999. on August 11th, 1999. Tornado touched down. It touched down right on the booby trap. And so
peak weather, modification there.
Went through the whole western area of town, which is known as the gate or the red light district. So it went through the red light district, and then it stopped right at Temple Square, and it took the trumpet out of Moroni's hands and threw it like a dart somewhere. I don't know where it went, but yeah, it just stopped.
So the gay district got flattened by the windy anal construct of God.
It's a titty twister.
Don't you feel like?
Wow.
Don't you feel like you could summarize the experience with the?
Gable, can you say that again?
Titty twister.
Titty twister.
I feel like you could summarize the last years with Biden, like the scene from High Anxiety where the birds just keep shitting all over him, and he tries to escape, and he gets into that tower, and he looks up, and they really go for it. That's what I feel. I'm suffering from that type of trauma.
I watched a clip from Bananas today, where they overthrow the evil government, and then within a couple of minutes, the new leader comes out and he says, "All right, everybody required to change their underwear every 30 minutes," and he starts listing all these like dictatorial demands. Within a few minutes of being in power, he just totally loses his mind. That's kind of what's happening.
Yeah,
That's the one with the nose.
I love
And
the
a
bit where
serious
they have
note, Alex
the
Jones' channel got bought out by The Onion. Is that real news?
No.
No, it's not true.
That's not real.
Not true. Did I get screwed on that one?
No,
Alex
it's not
Jones'
true.
channel did not get bought by The Onion.
No, it didn't.
No,
They
didn't have.
yeah.
They
Well, they were
attempted to
going to
take
try and take
possession
out a
for false
loan
auction.
to pay for the bidding, where it's like it was a rule break that like you have to have cash, you have to have the money, you can't bid and then win the bid and then go and borrow money to pay for it.
Well,
And they
yeah,
have
and
the
he made a
lowest bid.
deal. Like the Onion made a deal with the families of this, like the surviving family members of the Sandy Hook victims, that they would take part of the cost of that money and cover what they couldn't, what the Onion couldn't afford. The Family Hook families covered the rest of the money.
Right, I believe so, but also it was the lowest bid, and they did violate a number of rules, and so it's in limbo. It's going back to court, and at the same time, Jones is suing everyone.
Yeah, but the main reason for the court case why the judge allowed it was because the Sandy Hook families were willing to take a cut from the Onion and basically call it a wash on the money that the Onion was low on.
It's not suspicious
So
at all.
an absolute shyster move from Jones, or how'd that get down?
It was
That's-
from the
that's
Onion
wild.
that was the shyster move.
No,
Yeah,
no,
the
no,
Onion
no, no,
basically-
no. It was the caramelized onion.
Yeah, caramelized onion. The thing is that this would, with the Onion story, it basically made it impossible for Alex to make money off of his vitamins or off of his merchandise. Because people thought if they were going to go there and buy his merchandise or buy his vitamins, that the Onion was going to basically benefit from it. And they weren't, because it was just a lark. It was a ruse. So now Alex wants to sue them because people are not buying product from a site that they don't support.
Defamation, slander, you name it. Why don't you rip your shirt off like he does, Clyde? Alex ripped his shirt off during the election. You just got to get in there and rip it off.
Well, and it comes back to censorship. Ultimately, you may disagree or agree who is really the one to set, for example, hate speech, whether you like Alex Jones or not. Truly, once they censored him, they were able to censor many more. So I kind of hope that a lot of this does get overturned, because I love what's happening, where it feels like some free speech is coming back. I'd rather go forward a few steps than 10 steps back. So, and as far as the Onion goes, there were a lot of underhanded things that were done, and there were federal rules that were violated. So I hope they throw the book at them if that's truly the case.
Yes, and they'll be unwrapping their onion-tinted consequences.
That's right.
Conspiracies are like onions.
That is so good. That is the best pun I've heard in forever.
Yep.
It's gold.
Could you like do that again? It was so good.
And that's what you call onion. That is what you call unintended consequences.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Hey, you got a couple of laws up there in Canada.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna mention that actually about how you guys have free speech is coming back in the United States, but the west of the Western world, including Canada here, we're getting screwed on it. In fact, our government right now is trying to put the same kind of laws that they have in Europe and Britain, where you can't speak bad of the government.
Wow.
Well, don't you also have laws up there that you can't criticize Islam?
Yeah, that one was fairly recent. Under that same law, though, you're not supposed to be able to like slam Israel either. But the caveat there is if it's an Islamist doing it, it's okay.
Yeah, see, that's a hierarchy of what is considered. Yeah, exactly.
The hierarchy of oppression, exactly.
Yeah, and I disagree with the idea that free speech is coming back in America. I mean, with what Kristi Noem, Katie Britt, Chuck Schumer, John Thune, and all these people are doing, it's just transitioning from we have to justify censorship by using people with a certain color of skin and people with a certain form of genitalia and people with a certain sexual preference and fetishizing that and changing that out for the Republican fetish of Israel, and we have to make Jews a protected class and condemn Islam. It's the same exact thing. It's an attack on the First Amendment, and we've seen that legislation in Europe, we've seen it in Canada, and now we've had it in the U.S. being pushed, and now transition of presidency, and now the new incoming administration wants to censor free speech because it criticizes a foreign country. It's the same exact thing. You know, it's like when people
in the spirit of that, I heard a joke when I was at a festival regarding transitioning, and it's concerns what is the name of the surgical procedure where you transition a woman into a man. It's called
sex.
It's called a strapedectomy.
You should have started addictomy.
Right, addictomy.
Strapedectomy. Yeah.
But,
going on what the second gentleman previously said I'm retired military, so I got a little over 23 years in that mess. And over that 23 years, we've been indoctrinated into the same thing that you guys were just talking about. You can't speak against the government. You can't speak against religions. You can't speak against anything, period, except for what the military allows you to. So all your veterans, I mean, this is not a cry veteran thing, but you think when they talk about veterans and what they do is we've been dialed to that same exposure all through our entire careers. And I'm a guy who's been from the 90s to the 20 teens. It's pervasive. It's just a mess.
And it's totally antithetical to the First Amendment. There's a lot of irony there because if you got all these people over time, not in collusion, but just based on ideology, saying that we need to censor free speech to protect this group, censor free speech to protect that group. I mean, eventually you get like 1,000 laws for 1,000 groups when we only needed the First Amendment before to protect everybody. This is what and why government is completely and absolutely and utterly out of control. You only need one. Everybody has a right to practice their religion. The government cannot force you to have a religion, although the government can be comprised of people with their own religion. And everybody can say what they want to say, so long as they're not calling for people to die, and which is also ironic because you can, on the other side of things, you can call for genocide in certain specific cases, kill all the Russians, kill all of this group, and that's considered acceptable. It's just a mess because we don't understand the fundamental basis of what this country is supposed to be.
It's kind of like it's kind of like planned obsolescence, right? The laws become obsolete, so we have to create new ones in order to keep ourselves employed. And I reminded
trying to make the people obsolete.
Yeah, I mean, there was this story of an African town that started because of a massive pothole in the middle of the road. So everybody would run through and then lose a wheel or something like that every time they go through this pothole. So a guy decided that he would set up a garage next to the pothole so that he could change people's tires. and then somebody else started up a restaurant next to the workshop so that people could eat something while their tires were being changed. And then sometimes he got so much work that people had to start a hotel next to it so that people could stay there. And nobody ever thought to fix the pothole. Everybody thought about how to make money off of the pain and inconvenience and suffering that it wrought. And I think that the same principle is true of government. They create problems so that they can continue being employed.
That's right. And it's like the broken window fallacy in Economics 101. It's the same concept. It's the same idea. Yeah, because if we're just
Will the Doge fix that?
Or what's that? Oh, well, then it doesn't take into consideration. So if you have a business, I mean, I'm sure that an economist could explain it much better than I. I'm not an economist.
No, the Doge, the DOGE, the Rams away and Elon. Will they fix that?
Oh, the Department of Justice. Oh, you mean the government accountability office?
Doge, yeah, Department of
government efficiency.
I'm a space manager drunk, so yeah.
Department of Government Efficiency. Basically, they're the Bobs from Office Space.
Yeah.
What is it you say you do here?
What exactly do you do?
Have you been missing work?
I take the orders from the people, from the customers. I'm a people person.
I wouldn't say I was missing work.
Yeah,
I am good at working with people. What the hell is wrong with you people?
Classic. That's the first thing I thought of when I heard that those two were going to be part of this, this efficiency, Department of Efficiency. Like the business is going to come in and start firing people. They're the Bobs.
Right.
Well, the first thing I thought of is when you said the DOG or something like that is actually a guy called Darren DOG. He comes on my show and he talks about how when you're wearing a suit, what do you think? You're a businessman? No, you're a slave. How can you tell? Because you've got a collar around your neck, cuffs around your wrists, and you're wearing a leash around your throat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and Dodge, D-O-G-E, in some languages would be pronounced douche.
What a coincidence.
You know,
oh my lantern.
I remember when Reagan ran, and I wrote in Anderson because I thought it was the end of the world because of Reagan. Again, Occam's razor. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, sometimes you're a passenger and you don't get to make the decisions. So, have a nice ride.
Well, in the conspiracy movement, we kind of need to go past Occam's razor a little bit because it often doesn't explain things, whereas I use a technique called Fuckham's razor. And the technique states that if there are two possibilities, one of which makes you feel really good and makes you feel comfortable, like you're not under endless threat, and the other is too horrible to contemplate, the latter is the one that is true.
Yeah.
Fuckham's razor.
One of my favorite comedians, you guys know Bill Burr?
Yeah.
Bill Burr, of course.
Bill Burr said, he's like, I really understand this Hitler stuff. I mean, he wore this suit all the time. He's like, I put a suit on. I felt it riding up. I thought, shit, I want to take over some stuff.
Good. That's good. Hey guys, I need to interrupt for just a minute because we have about an hour left.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to thank Rob and Mike for keeping the Ground Zero Radio network up and running. Also, Bill Freeze from TalkStreamLive.com. They carry Ground Zero. Race Hobbs, he's the programming manager for the UNX network, and also Bill Forte, who helps run KGRA. And I believe we're also on the Scary Cast too with John Stammy. So much appreciation and thanks to those people who keep Ground Zero alive and on various networks.
Hey, and that reminds me as well, the people behind the scenes who actually do all the stuff for us so that we can actually even have a platform that runs, they don't get really as much appreciation as they deserve. So everybody, let's just give them a bit of a round of applause, shall we?
Yes, thank you.
Cheer. Yay.
Well, on behalf of the back end staff,
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I remember this one time we had what was it? The two biggest alternative media outlets in New Zealand after myself and my friend Billy TK got deplatformed. We were previously the number one and two, but I knew the two tech guys, Justin and Jono, who did all the actual real work behind the scenes, so that Counterspin and Free New Zealand Media could actually exist on the web. And I had these two old keyboards. You know, it takes me about 2 years to burn out a keyboard with the amount of work that I do. And I nailed them to a piece of wood, and then engraved that piece of wood with the Exposing Scumbaggery Awards 2024, and put their name and the organization that they were working for on them. And I went to their fundraiser where they were doing a dual fundraiser, and I presented these awards to them. And I said to them, on the keyboard, you will notice there is no escape.
Well, the people behind the scenes do a lot of work. That's for sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I've got. They do a great job. I've got something I want to bring up. Something I brought up last night, on the show, and that is what's going on here. I see something weird happening. Somebody's cursors and craziness
Mike's
going
doing
on.
something behind the
What's
scenes.
going on? Something's happening.
What's going on? Okay,
That's on Mike's side.
So anyway, so Kevin Clark is this guy in Colorado. He's this news guy, and he's a real douchebag, obviously, because he was talking about the UFO hearings.
Yeah.
And Lauren Boebert got up and started asking questions of the panel, and she was saying something to the effect, she says, is there any truth to the rumor that there are alien hybrids being bred in labs, and should we worry about them taking over the world? And I remember Lou Elizondo and all these guys were kind of like under their breath, not laughing or kind of chuckling, no, 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 no. And this guy Clark was saying, this is what she's doing. She's basically wasting our time asking questions about, you know, this and that and this and that, and just really, you know, pounding her a good one. What was weird, though, is that after she had asked that question, and after, you know, all of the criticism she got for asking the question, Henry Kissinger comes out with this book called Genesis. It's a posthumous book where he says that you ought to be careful because in the future, we are going to be led by superhuman beings, hybrid beings. And he says this is part of the transhuman thing. Yeah. And I'm like thinking, whoa, you know, and here they are laughing at her and criticizing her for asking this question. But Kissinger comes out and he says it's going to happen. And I'm thinking, okay, we were earlier talking about the reptilian horde. We were earlier talking about, you know, people in positions of power that we don't know. I mean, they're part of the World Economic Forum. They're part of the Harari Group. They're part of the Council on Foreign Relations. They're part of, you know, Klaus Schwab's henchmen. And all these guys are there, but it makes me wonder if they're part of this, you know, blood-sucking, you know, hybridization program that Kissinger talked about. I mean, look, either Kissinger was senile and was writing a bunch of bullshit, but he has two other authors backing it up. But he gave the warning. He said, hey, get ready. You're going to be led by a bunch of, you know, half-breeds, hybrid, whatever. I just wonder if anybody had any comment on that.
Isn't that the same as Yuval Harari? It's the same stuff that he says. He even said that what we're building is you're going to have to, he didn't say it figuratively, he said you're literally going to have to learn how to see again and how to smell and how to use your senses because you're going to be plugged into something where those senses are connected to sensors in a computer, like physically plugged. He said that in an interview. It's very similar to what you say it was Kissinger?
Yeah, Henry Kissinger, before he died, he wrote this book called Genesis. I think I'm going to buy it because I want to read this because Kissinger's always scared me as being, you know, just
the Kissinger of death. That's a show name for you.
Kissinger of death. I've written and talked about Kissinger. In fact, Janine did a show about Kissinger a long time ago. Basically wondering what the hell is he doing there? and he lived to be 100, and he was there as a statesman. Why was he a statesman? Why was he always there? And then he comes out with this book, Genesis. Weirdly, he calls it Genesis. He's got two other authors with him writing about it. In fact, they finished the transcript. He started writing it, and then of course they finished it posthumously. And now basically this thing that they dumped on everybody saying, be prepared, we're going to be ruled by a group of hybrids. They're going to be superhuman, they're going to be ubermensch, they're going to be whatever. And I'm like thinking, okay, so Lauren Boebert made the same inquiry at the UFO gathering, and she was laughed off stage.
Right.
Now Kissinger says it. It's something that it's
The
it's
genesis
just
of their
bizarre.
revelation.
Granted, I think he's talking a different type of hybrid than alien humid hybrids being created in Dulce, New Mexico base, things like that. He's talking much more, yes, the transhumanist hybrid, things like Zoltan Istvan talk about that kind of stuff, things like, the filmmaker in Canada and the early 20, like I think it was 2012, 2013, that lost his eye and had it replaced with a recordable camera. That
Mhm.
kind of stuff,
Yeah,
where we are going to see the world of implants and implantology really becoming a mainstay in medicine, becoming a mainstay in science, where you have people that, yeah, do have implants that make them a hyperhuman, so to
I
speak.
mean, a hybrid mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like what's I'm playing the game Cyberpunk 2077 right now, and one
Oh,
of
yeah.
the underlying themes of that game is artificial intelligences taking over human bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I just finished this one quest where you reenact the crucifixion of Jesus.
Crucifixion. Yeah.
Yeah, you hammer the nails into this guy's body, and then just shortly after that, I get a prompt for this other quest that takes me back to the final part of dealing with the crazy conspiracy guy that's on the streets talking about vampires and aliens and super intelligences from the net coming in to take over the world, and like the police and Secret Service of Night City takes this guy off the street. And like you're left with this shard that you don't know what's on it. It's got a whole bunch of these weird symbols on it, and you're just left wondering what's going on. And every once in a while, when you interact with certain people, there are these people that have these glowing blue eyes, and like you sometimes will interact with people and their eyes will glow blue briefly when you're transferring data to them or transferring like money to them. But these people that are the infested by the alien or by the artificial intelligence, their eyes are always blue. They don't stop
They
glowing.
ate too
blue.
much spice.
They ate too much
Spice,
spice.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's basically one of the themes of that game is the human soul, whether or not artificial intelligence technology can revive and keep the human soul alive, and whether or not the human soul can be brought back into a living body, which is like the basis of the start of the game. Your first major mission, you end up getting shot in the head at the end, but you have this thing in there called a soul chip or soul shard in your head that you stole from this company called Arasaka. You get shot in the head by the fixer that set you up on the gig. But the soul shard contains the essence of this guy named Johnny Silverhand, who was a terrorist rock and roll star from the 2020s.
And
go on, Spaceman.
And I think that maybe that's just more and more getting us prepared for what is really happening. Is that
entertainment is predictive programming?
Yeah, it's more predictive programming. I'm a Call of Duty player. I logged in with my screen name on Call of Duty, so join me up if you want. But just like we're talking about the Rockefellers, the people who've lived long lives, the billionaires, they've got the program figured out. They've already figured it out for us, and how are they getting us to where they want us to be for them?
And that's another underlying theme too. The billionaires that have lived for over 200 years in that game.
Okay, guys.
Yeah, and that's exactly what society is kind of rolling that way now. They're capping off their fun guys. Like they got one of their pedophile masters done. Diddy, second pedophile master. Oh, wait a second, that's a West Coast style versus an East Coast style pedophile master. And now it's starting to crash, but it's not a crash. They're protected. They're covered. They're good. They know what they're doing. They're bringing our society maybe back down. I don't know. Is that a weird facet of what they're doing? Just
I'd
to
like
prepare
to-
society for being brought so far down.
You know what that the Bobert
that you
woman
have
was
control on
saying
us.
though. But you said it was Bobert that asked that question.
Lauren Boebert, she was there, and I think she was being. I mean, it was funny because she was being very serious about the inquiry, but what got me was Kyle Clark. If you want to look this guy up, Kyle Clark was this guy who's in Colorado who does this news story, and he was making her out to sound like a really dumb idiot, and she was asking questions about there's rumors about hybrids and whether or not they're going to take over. I hadn't heard that, okay, until I read the story about Henry Kissinger, and he's the guy that started that posthumously. That's
I
what
think
he
she's a
leaves
shill.
behind.
I think she's
What's
a
that?
shill
Well,
for that.
She might be a shill for that. I just want to interject.
No,
one
I
thing.
don't think
when
she's
she
a shill
says,
at all. I'm just saying she asked the question, and
Yeah.
she was immediately like, kind of like it was. Are you out of your mind? Asking
like she was
this
attacked
question?
and ridiculed for just
Yeah, and
having
then
the
she
question.
asked the question about aliens living underwater. You know, because that was another story that's been breaking out of there.
Which could be akin to saying, 10 years ago, men will be using women's bathrooms. People would have reacted the same way.
But
So,
what
I'm
she
just saying that-
asked.
Go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Clyde. Go ahead.
No, I just don't want people to get the idea that, she's shilling for anything, because no, she was serious about asking the question, and everybody thought it was crazy until Kissinger said in his book that this is going to happen. He made it sound as if that we were going to be taken over by transhumanist hybrids, maybe even soldiers that are genetically modified, and even alien hybrids.
This reminds me of
there's a difference.
Arthur Schopenhauer's quote: "At first, the truth is ridiculed, then it is violently opposed, and then it is accepted as being self-evident."
Right.
Brilliant.
But what she said, though, I'm going to think outside the box, though, for a moment. What she said, or the essence of what she said, I mean, I think any question's a valid question, even if you want to ask if the earth is flat, ask the question. People have a right to laugh. People have a right to mock you. People have a right to pretty much do whatever. But I think that what she's saying is large. It's kind of like that MTG crowd, where it's like you kind of can get on board for a couple of minutes with what they're saying, and then she starts going off about space lasers, which, yes, there are technologies like that, but it goes into the hardcore, like CIA intelligence agency algorithmic conspiracy realm. And I think what she was saying is so similar to the crap that the National Security Agency and the U.S. military pumped into the brain of Paul Benowitz. If you read that story, they literally just programmed his computer
Gotcha, brother.
with
Gotcha
all
on that
these
one.
narratives. And that's come through all the way to today. Now we have members of Congress asking about the CIA, NSA, U.S. military alien conspiracies. That's my opinion.
Well, now granted, and I mean, I'm pretty involved in the disclosure community. I've got quite a few friends in there, and when you're talking big D disclosure, the one thing you're not going to see them haul out a tube with a body in it, and pull a cover.
But those ones in Mexico weren't real.
It's not going to happen. You're not going to see a pile of wreckage. But what you will eventually see through things like what we've heard from Grush, stuff like that, is that from 1945 to now, there have been billions of dollars shifted through special access programs that then went into unacknowledged special access programs that are not under congressional oversight. We will eventually end up with an Ollie North from either an alphabet agency or an alphabet agency and a contractor thereof taking the fall, basically, for the fact of, yes, we did pay off people that were injured by retrieval programs that we can't admit exist, because we have the documentation that people were part of retrieval programs and that they were injured during them.
But that doesn't necessarily.
But the retrieval program doesn't exist.
I'm so
But just-
greatly
And
curious
that's
here.
the exact same way Area 51 came to knowledge. Was people downwind ended up suing the federal government because they got cancer from the burn off from stealth materials. And
That's right,
Bill
yeah.
Clinton had to say, like, oh, yeah, sorry about that class action lawsuit against the government. There is a place called Area 51, and they do all kinds of testing there.
And to throw it into the mix, even here, how many people think it's a spiritual component?
Yeah, I think it's a ritual. I think it's it's some kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to
No,
say
Derek.
that's where I always come down with CE5 and things like that. Is when it comes to let's summon a craft together, in the expectation that this thing has goodwill toward us, I think that is a very dangerous thing that Dr. Stephen Greer has invited.
Yes.
Oh, I agree. Totally agree. I keep
but
thinking
if-
of that scene in War of the Worlds where those three guys have a white shirt and they're saying, when we do the white flag, we friends.
Yeah.
Open up.
Go ask Regan how playing with the Ouija board and talking to Captain Howdy worked out. Captain Howdy was real friendly at the beginning too.
But if you have,
she's spitting up pea soup and throwing people down with their head backward.
So that's why
can I add something in there? I interviewed Carol Roslin. She was the first female aerospace CEO in U.S. history. And she was the apprentice of Werner von Braun, who was the person who, for Adolf Hitler, invented the V-2 rocket and later worked for NASA on the Apollo program. And he said that there's going to be a third world war, and it's going to be against aliens, fake aliens that we've created with advanced technology and things of that nature, in such a way when people perceive that there is an external threat from beyond the stars, they will start to see their commonality and unite as a one world government against the alien threat. Yeah. And that's what. Yeah, exactly. The holographic
my thoughts on
satellites.
Bluebeam. Funny, we're traveling in here. First of all, Carol Rosin was it the
she
UFO?
Said the threat of aliens, not.
She said the threat of aliens was fake, not that aliens were fake. That's the thing that people are mistaking here. That she said that the alien threat would be fake because the aliens don't want anything to do with us, only that they're observing us, and that's the whole point. Bluebeam, everybody thinks that Bluebeam's going to be one big UFO show. I've determined that it's not going to be a UFO show. It's going to be the second coming of Jesus. They're already preparing us for this. They're already preparing us for, like I was talking about the other night. In fact, I talked to Matthew James Bailey about this. They're already putting together a holographic cosmic Christ that they want to unleash on people. In Switzerland right now, people are already confessing their sins to a holographic Christ sitting in confession. So,
I remember. I forget
the second coming.
I forget who I was. I forget who I was interviewing at the time, but they were talking about the testing of voice to skull technology in Iraq, and they were using voice to skull tech to tell all these Iraqi soldiers, "I am the voice of Allah. Lay down your arms," and stuff like that. And these guys would just come out of the bunkers, their hands up and stuff like that. They really thought that God was talking to them.
Well, and not just that.
I got
they're all holograms that you can reach out and shake the hand of.
Yeah, exactly.
There are haptic feedback holograms that you can feel. There are haptic holograms that you can hear. So yeah.
What if it's
okay? So
I got 7 years in the Middle East, and we definitely have devices that are on the back of Humvees and on the back of up armored vehicles. Call it whatever vehicle you want, and they just blast radio waves at their choice at people behind them to get them to stand off. Yeah.
Yeah, LRAD.
Have you guys noticed?
So this is another point that we want to go back to. We talked about how entertainment is predictive programming. Now, what if, and this is what I'm starting to do, I'm starting to get into making films and things of that nature, actually. What if all of us people with all the knowledge that we have, we come up with scripts and stories and things of that nature, and we start programming the populace through entertainment instead?
Yeah.
If you got cameras, I got script ideas for you.
All I need is a Domino's pizza and a 6-pack of script. I wrote Nightfall.
But have you guys noticed all the
and
ads for computers have built-in AI? As I watch everyone speak here, we do have unique personalities. So now you're going to buy your computer because eventually you're going to have to update. It's going to have built-in AI, and it may not be to help
I just
you.
joined this Zoom conference and it asked me if I want an AI assistant.
Yeah.
Or AI.
Just so you know,
on the Zoom conference tonight.
And
I'm like, well, fuck
think
that.
of the way-
I had to log in 3 times to get it straightened out so that I
think of the way that
get my
they
headset to
use-
work.
Whether or not you're recording Zoom,
influence
you are
people.
being recorded to train their AIs.
Everything. That's why Elon Musk bought X in the first
agreement
place.
as of a year ago.
Think of the way they use polls to influence people. So here you have a device that's going to learn to basically act like you. And what if it puts it out there that you have certain opinions when you never did? It's your AI that picked up basically now your personality.
Well, you can do that even without technology. I mean, look at what the media has done with Trump. All he has to do is say, hey, you know, what if you were on the front lines? Oh my God, he said she was going to be in a firing squad.
Well,
you don't even have to make things.
Never forget about the overthrow of Hosni Mubarak via flash mob from Facebook.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a
2011.
Facebook post that was like, let's do a flash mob, everybody.
But
didn't they do that with Gaddafi too? I mean, didn't we witness his rape on TV?
Yeah,
I think
they pulled his
so.
body through the pipes and beat the hell out of him. But you know what you guys are saying, kind of a mixture of everything you guys are saying. If you go back to the idea of crash retrieval programs, that's only assuming we do a lot of assumption. That's assuming we're talking about aliens. Crash retrieval programs are for things like maybe Soviet technology, Chinese technology, right?
Yeah.
So
what about the gifting program, Ryan? So, did you see the new Pasalka book, American Cosmic, whatever, that's making the rounds? We've been talking about this for years, me and you, Ryan. But the idea that it's a gifting, it's on a happenstance that we received this down crash and got this huge foot pump of technology. That's part of a gifting program. It's the result of rituals. Like, we asked for technology, and what they gave us. It's a man. Yeah. So all these congressional hearings and stuff, they're kind of using meme magic. The idea to immediately dismiss something, to like roll out this weird Mexican like paper mache alien thing, immediately have it dismissed, but immediately have it become memeified online. Same thing with that clip you're talking about, Clyde. To have it immediately dismissed, but said in this weird kind of alien mass they're doing in this weird ritual building. They were doing some type of like invocation, manifestation. We're shaping the phenomena itself. It's like working its way through
They're
us.
eating your pets.
Yeah.
Think about what that did.
With the hologram thing, real quick. That's the haptic ones, like the tangible ones. The World Economic Forum was working on it right now the past few years under the radar. But that's kind of what I think the blue beam is. They're not faking it. It's fake it till you manifest it. Fake it till you make it. That we're actually trying to conjure something and give something a vessel. If you can have, if these AI demon things or some kind of type of presence or spirit can inhabit a tangible laser-induced plasma hologram that can fly around, become giant. It's like the Marshmallow Man in Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters, yeah.
They can become anything.
That's just like what
it's a vessel.
An egregore.
Yeah, it
we're
is an
creating
egregore.
but we're not creating the intelligence. We're creating the vessel for an existing intelligence.
Yeah. That's to draw it into the new. Yes, that's
If you
right.
want a fake alien threat, think about what they talk about on the TV show Three Body Problem.
Yes.
Okay. Think about that. That's the alien threat that I'm thinking would be done, is saying, we just got word. I mean, they're saying, what, 100 years before the alien invasion or 500 years before the alien invasion, and they're having to prepare for that. How about they come out and they say, we just got word that in 25, 30 years, we're going to be invaded or we're going to get visits from people from other planets. And immediately the government uses that whole idea. I mean, it's like COVID-19, right?
Yep.
It's like, we didn't see COVID-19. Some people said they got sick. Some people said they died from it. They didn't die from it. They died from pneumonia. I mean, that's the thing, is that, you know, they took COVID and they said, okay, COVID is going to kill people. But what it is it triggers a cytokine storm that creates pneumonia to kill people. And we'll call it COVID. Same thing with the alien threat. They could come out tomorrow and say, oh, by the way, we just got word that we're going to be invaded or visited by aliens in 25 years from now or 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And they can immediately say that. And what is that going to do with us? That's the fake alien threat. They don't
What-
even need to be
What was that article from?
UFOs in the air.
Even the normalization though of every 3-4 weeks there was a bus size asteroid that they just missed. There was a bus size asteroid that coming to Earth in 2 hours that they missed totally. Like
and to Derek's point too,
basis,
Derek, you're talking about conjuring things. I mean, you think about this for a moment. If you really have studied the ufological narrative, the mythos, the stories, I mean, generations now, it's been 70 plus years. We've heard a lot of the same stories over and over and over again, right? And so, I mean, if we think, I've looked at it like this. We know, we at least assume, we kind of all agree, we've been lied to about something. We don't know what it is, but we've been lied to. Okay, well, the government clearly knows that, and I mean that as a collective whole, particularly the intelligence community and the military. So if they know that you know that they've been lying, what stops them from just telling you the truth, and then you will conjure the lie, and you will manifest the aliens yourself? I think that's part of what's happening too.
Swear to God, Ryan Gable, you're an 80s kid, and you should have watched Red Dawn 100 times.
I've seen Red Dawn once.
Well, I thought about it like this. There was a riddle. There was an arsonist outside a burning house, and the police have got their guns on him, and they shoot him, and he runs back into the burning house, and then an air conditioning unit falls on him. What killed him? COVID-19.
Wasn't there a Time magazine article, Clyde, we talked about that said COVID-19 is an example or a beta test for what would happen if there was an alien invasion of planet Earth?
Yeah,
and it made people crazy. It made people possessed.
Yeah,
it was like an invasion of their mind. You know,
right?
It was like
just like I'm Legend too.
Yeah, we missed our alien moment. It was Cynthia Weber, I think her name was. She was a futurist, and she says we missed our alien moment because COVID-19 was an alien invasion that didn't have little gray men or flying saucers. It was an invasion of the mind, an invasion of the soul. The idea that we are actually becoming a slave to something that is smaller than we are, something that we cannot see, something that's
controlling our thoughts, a parasite.
Yeah, it's all a part of our thoughts. And so, I mean, just the idea, I always tell people, just the idea of even saying that there's an alien threat out there, if the government wanted to, they could get up tomorrow and say, well, aliens are coming in 25 years. We got to do this. We got to do this. We got to do this. Start making laws change. I mean, climate change is another alien threat. It's the idea that, okay, so climate change isn't working for people. What if we told them that an alien threat is coming, and this is why we have to change the way we look at climate? This is the way we have to change.
What if it's like
terraforming the planet?
Actually, the reason for this is you want to have a completely invisible threat that is odorless, tasteless, that you cannot touch. Okay, look, it's over there.
What if it can be like a?
It's behind you.
Yeah,
but like,
what are you going to say, Derek?
What if these things can kind of act as like carrots and sticks for us? Though, I mean, we talk about the lockdowns and everything. That's the thing that's really traumatizing in the immediate. But in 50 years, what we're going to be looking back on for that 2 to 4 year period was the boost of technology, the boost of people working from home, the boost of AI companions, the boost of Zoom chat, and all those kind of the technological boost. And the big tech really had a stranglehold over us. So what if these things are these like cosmic rays we're getting? Like for instance, like infrared, we get some weird signal from space, waves that the phenomena can manipulate. We know it can manipulate energy with. So since that was some kind of wave that we can see is there, we don't know what it is. We have to invent a technology in order to perceive this thing. And once we do, now there's like UFO people out here, like remote viewers and stuff, who are leading like tours with personal infrared goggles, and they're seeing orbs flying around. Like we're being given mechanisms in order to lift the veil on our own, and that's what three body problem is. I don't want to spoil it, but that's what it's getting at. It's not that they're the alien humanoid force that's coming to Earth. It's that we were sent a signal on a speaker, and it made us change our entire habits as a species. And I don't want to spoil what's happening, but
in other words,
it's not humanoids. It's like something much more complex than that.
Well, it brings up the wow signal and whether or not it was a direct message to us, and maybe it was a message saying we're coming. And I would say that's a great idea to bring across the idea of a possible alien invasion that's thought up and put together by a bunch of psychologists, and we see how the people react to it. And this is why I'm thinking, and I just can't shake this Boebert incident where she talks about the hybrids. They all kind of laugh it off, and then Kissinger comes out with the hybrid story in his book. I mean, that's stuff that's going to last forever. Why would he say something like that if it's not going to happen?
This came up in the chat last night. I got to get back from my break, so I'll wrap it up. But this came up in the chat last night, Clyde. Epstein. That was kind of Epstein's whole thing too, was this weird transhuman thing. And his ranch in particular was the mixing machines and getting AI to connect with the human
making
body.
Babies.
Yeah, making babies
for sure. And Westworld, season 1 in particular was completely about Epstein's ranch and the whole concept of the maze and everything and all like the bull symbolism and what he was doing was trying to create these human hybrids and stuff. And synchronistically, when his victims, or he was I think he was either convicted or he died when during the Storm Area 51 thing. Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested on UFO Day, same day as the MUFON head went down for sex crimes. She was arrested where Betty and Barney Hill were abducted, near where Crowley lived in New Hampshire, in Lovecraft country. And Epstein's victims, like during their trauma counseling sessions, they had to draw pictures to like deal with that trauma, and they all drew Epstein in a UFO, flying around a UFO. And then Ghislaine Maxwell has like her own personal submarine that she has photographed in many, many, many times to go probably to the island, but potentially to some underwater whatever. And then I gotta leave, my headphones are dying. But Epstein apparently has a fish-like dick. His victims are saying that his dick is mutilated. A, which is like a Mithraic cult. B,
That's right.
a fish cult. He's like a fish person. He's a fish.
There you go, gun. Yeah.
Same with Weinstein. Same exact thing. They said he's a fish penis. He's a fish dick, and he mutilated himself. And
you like fish dicks?
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just a lot of weird. So,
does anybody find it interesting that there's a?
Yeah, good.
Anybody else find it interesting that there's a sex trafficker called Jiz Lane?
Yeah, I said that earlier. Her name is Jiz Lane. I thought the
there's
Matrix was fucking with me.
There's a deity in Buddhism in the Far East. He's a protector of children. His name is Jizzo, literally. Well, you
No
hear
shit,
some,
bro.
something really bizarre to
The names they
piggyback.
give themselves are like supervillains.
Well,
The Matrix is
a
crashing.
point I was trying to
The
make.
big battery is failing in the Matrix.
I was trying to make an observation one time. You know how people see things from different perspectives, and have you ever seen two people having an argument, and you're not part of that argument, but you're listening to them, and you realize as a third party that these people actually agree, and yet they're acting like they vehemently disagree, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about myself too.
So story goes that there was once these two ascended masters from these two opposing religions. The first religion thought of the second religion as just a bunch of pussies, and the second religion thought of the first religion as just a bunch of dicks. But their two religions had shared a very similar belief, which is that if you meditate hard enough, you will be able to appear physically before the mountain of truth. And one day, these two ascended masters from these two opposing religions did it. They appeared on opposite sides of the mountain of truth. The first guy comes out, and the mountain looks like it's got these two large boulder formations at the bottom and a shaft that goes upwards and a sort of mushroom cap on the top of it. And the second guy comes out, and it appears more like a convex, a cave with little sort of riblets going inwards. And the first guy yells out, "Hey, it looks like a dick, you pussy!" And to which the other guy replies, "No, it looks like a pussy, you dick!" And to which the other guy replies, "Don't call me a dick, you pussy!" To which the other man says, "Well, then don't call me a pussy, you dick!" And the moral of the story is that sometimes we're being too much of a dick or too much of a pussy to see things from the other guy's perspective.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yep.
God, that's great. Oh, that's too good. All right, well, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Oh my God.
Well, perhaps there's a possibility that we've already passed the fake alien invasion. I mean, if you're talking about COVID-19 being similar to that, perhaps we're already way past that. In the conspiracy world, we like to take the same talking point and just repeat it over and over and talk about it over and over and over and beat it to death. A lot of times I think we've already passed it and we're like way in the future and we're missing out on other things.
Well,
and perhaps
on the
that is actively one of my favorite hypotheses is Dr. Michael P. Masters, who is an anthropologist and basically gives the hypothesis that if you extrapolate out human evolution, specifically our bone mass, bone shape, things like that, about 10,000 years or so, our skull begins to look like a gray alien. If you start looking at Occam's razor and the idea of how else are you going to find bipedal species in the rest of the universe?
Mm-hmm.
There aren't too many
evolution works, though.
species here on Earth, much less in the universe. So the idea of them actually being us from the future or an adjunct us from another dimension explains a lot of the questions that abductees get, where it's like, stop playing with nuclear weapons, treat the Earth with respect. Mm-hmm. They seem to be very, very oriented.
They seem to be
toward
us.
things like that and genetics.
Well, they seem to be us, but they're also they're fetal like humans. I think they're unconscious projections of ourselves because we're worried about nuclear weapons. We're worried about the environment. I don't really think that they're physical in any sense of the word. I think that it's an internal, psychological, in my opinion, largely.
No, I could see that. I could see
psychological
that.
thing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's even something that I talk about regularly on my show is the idea of even Bigfoot. Like, yes, I believe that there is a large hominid creature roaming the woods of North America and beyond, but I also think that there is something else out there that will gladly use the trope of any Bigfooter's mind to disguise themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, bro, don't start telling all us people we're crazy.
I'm not
we
saying
see
you're
weird
crazy.
shit.
Absolutely not. But I'm saying that when you're talking about, okay, Bigfoot or Bigfoot walking into a portal,
and
now
what you just
talking
mentioned,
to
Chris?
different phenomenon. But you're also talking about the fact of, is it another phenomenon, a spiritual phenomenon that is using the trope in your mind that you would be comfortable with as a point of consent?
Yeah.
That
That's how it
explains
manifests.
skinwalkers.
Yeah, Big Bad Wolf in Little Red Riding Hood using her grandmother's clothes to fool her, to deceive her. Like wearing your memories, wearing your perception.
Wearing what you would be comfortable with, because you're out there Bigfooting. So you would be comfortable seeing a Bigfoot. But if you see me in my actual form, you'd freak shit.
I mean, the analogy I always use is if you like think about the signs, stackings in the woods, strange noises, strange smells, no noises like the Oz effect, gifting, things being thrown at you, strange sounds. If that was happening in your house, that's poltergeist activity. That's happening in the woods, that's a Bigfoot, because people just assume it's a Bigfoot. So what if it's like you're saying, there is some type of wild man thing out in the woods potentially, or we have some type of latent fear based from our time where there was multiple human species, like multiple hominids. We're afraid of like something that looks like us, but it's all furry and bestial and stuff. So that fear then manifests something like a tulpa, some kind of like thought form that's out there in the woods. That's like a projection of our fears, in addition to a real cryptid, in addition to a trickster entity that will just deceive us based on our expectations of a wild man.
Yes.
So there's like multiple things happening.
When you look at a lot of the, especially the traditional tribal warnings of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, things like that, they are very much the same as the people of the Fae, fairies and things like that, where it's like, don't follow their song into the woods, don't accept food from them.
Yeah, don't
Can I give you one quick thing that this, like I said, I'm a zero. I'm a ground zero listener. I'm a zero. That I heard that nobody's ever touched on before. And maybe you guys are so smart on this and can tell me what I heard, maybe what happened.
Nobody what?
Please.
Yeah, check this crazy stuff out. I've seen some stuff and not some stuff and not some stuff. I don't believe in much of anything, but I love this situation. But I laid in bed one night and I'm asleep, And all of a sudden, I have a downdraft of air blowing straight in my ear in my bedroom, and there is nobody living with me for a mile. And nobody's in my room. I wake up, I look up, and something blew in my ear. It wasn't a gnat, it wasn't a bug, it wasn't a butterfly. Is there a thing that does that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what? How does that?
There are
You guys have the
like shadow
brilliance. I
people,
have the
that kind of
ignorance,
stuff.
and I'm learning.
Incubi and succubi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why?
I mean,
No.
I on my show regularly, I talk about the things I
It
talk
was a
about.
direct blow in my ear, like if I were like go,
I've had a shadow person grab me
as hard as I could in my ear.
Yeah, the incubi and the succubi. The succubi is more pleasant.
Can I piggyback on something you said?
Why?
Derek?
Because they go in or they suck. What's the
Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I wanted to piggyback on something Derek said, and I've got the little angel and the devil on my shoulder right now, and the devil's saying, "Say it," and the angel says, "Don't say it, don't send it." So I'm going to say it anyway. Just an observation, okay? So what Derek said about Weinstein and Epstein and their penises, I've also read that. Okay, so just please hear me out. I know this is going to sound offensive, but let's do it anyway. One of my favorite comedians, Larry David, went on SNL, and he said, "I've noticed something about all of these pedophiles." He said, "They all seem to be Jewish." He said, "That doesn't look good for my people." And it's interesting because Ghislaine Maxwell is also Jewish. Her dad was Mossad. And I want to point something out I've never heard anybody else mention this. I just learned about this. There's a monster in Japan called Tengu. And this monster holds a scroll, has a big nose, rabbinical characteristics, and has a black Teflon cube that it wears on its head. And the characteristic of this monster is that it kidnaps children and it drinks their blood, tortures them, and does really bad things to children.
little blood libel?
Well, precisely that kind of a thing. But this is in Japan, and this dates back. I mean, God knows how far this dates back into.
Why would there be blood libel in Japan? That's amazing.
Well, see, that's the question, because look at what the Jews, well, they're not really Jews, but the Jews that were accused of in the Bible, they were accused of sacrificing children to Moloch. Who is running the Department of Homeland Security right now? Mayorkas. He's also dual Israeli Jewish, and that's where all the missing kids are going. And we looked at what happened to those Orthodox Jews in New York as well, running those underground synagogue tunnels. There is a connection. I mean, the Japanese have this, where they have a monster that looks like a rabbi that even carries a Torah scroll that kidnaps kids and sucks they have a ritual, the circumcision ritual, where they suck the blood out of the penis. It's called Metzitza Bepe. It's on the New York City Health Department website of how to properly suck the baby's penis to get the blood out. So there's something weird about that in relation to what
pronounced
Derek said.
it's pronounced Sabitza.
You touched on something, Ryan, and I've often thought about this. When you take young kids to a circus and they see a clown and they start screaming horrifically, or it's Easter and some of these Easter bunnies look so exaggerated. What are they picking up on? Because when you look at carvings and hieroglyphs around the planet, they often exaggerate certain elements of the face. And what happens to a lot of these politicians and actors, especially now when you see them with the Botox and the plastic surgery, you would think that they would run from that, because there's something in us that gets cultivated when we're a baby, and it's like a big no, don't do it. And yet you've got Lady Gaga, all these different people that almost aim for making their faces look monstrous and exaggerated.
No, that's a great point. And I mean, I've pointed out before too, if you look at Benjamin Netanyahu, he looks like the demon Baal. In fact, I mean, people can call it anti-Semitic, but Colin Duplancy, when he wrote his giant dictionary Infernal, I'd say 3 out of 8 or 3 out of 10, I should say, 3 out of 10 of the monsters look like rabbis. Belphegor looks like a rabbi taking a dump, because that was the caricature of the Jewish people in Europe at the time when he wrote that dictionary. That's where those images come from.
Let me throw this in from a spiritual sense. So I was talking about AI being on computers, which technically builds a backdoor into human beings, the way that we use our computers. And so are we talking about evil and we're talking about something that has easy access to evil, or are we talking about something that's evil because it's evil? That's where the spiritual realm comes about in my thinking. Are there certain stances that we can take in life and be more prone to be receptive to certain influences and thus actions versus, it just being something that's more the character of, say, a race or a religion?
Well, that's
races
why
and
they say
religions
that
are.
a
Evil's
lot
going
of
to take the
demons.
easiest access.
I'm
Evil
just
will
saying,
always take the
a lot
easiest
of
access.
a lot of demons depicted in art, a lot of demons depicted in other things have Roman or Jewish features. It's no secret. I mean, the wicked witches that you see have the noses and the chins, and it was all done because they were the bad guy. I mean, the Renaissance painters would make the Jews look like the bad guy, or they make the Romans look like the bad guy. So you'd have the demons with Roman features and Jewish features. It was really amazing how we have developed this. I guess you could call it this image and action parameter with regard to how demons and things should look, because they have the noses and the chins, and they have the build, and they have the sometimes the broader noses, and we associate that also with the British monarchy, because the British monarchy or the British people are all Romans.
Well, monsters
it's
are
the
kind
same
of like
thing for the.
allegory to pass through time. Like, for example, nowadays we don't call it demons, we call it psychopaths, because they've got all the same characteristics, and now we've got science or whatever. But back in the day, they were warning people about demons. They're tricksters and things like that. They were warning people about vampires. Don't invite them into your life. If you get encountered by them, expose them to the light. What do psychopaths fear? They fear being exposed, right? And so I think that this is what ancient people were really trying to like pass down. There's messages of monsters and demons and things of that nature, but they were trying to describe real things to us through story that would pass down through time.
Yeah, there was a model for it, and it's a similar thing to the World War II propaganda and the World War I propaganda against the Germans. The Germans were brutish, and they were big monkeys that carried women on their shoulders, and they stabbed babies on bayonets, and that became the German, image. I mean, and in fact, I think we can tie this into the alien thing too, because it's like when you try to portray something, and whether you're finding a scapegoat to explain a particular problem in society or whatever the case might be, you're trying to explain something, you try to personify it. So it's a monster, so it's a demon, so it's whatever. Well, we're doing the same thing with aliens today, or what we call aliens collectively. We have new technologies. We use things to look up in the sky in different wavelengths, and whether we're summoning or we're just observing, we see things that we don't fully understand. I mean, mainline scientists are just now trying to figure out what the hell plasma is in the atmosphere, and it plays around in the atmosphere just like a UFO, or just like a flying saucer, or just like what we think is an intelligently controlled spacecraft. So we don't understand what it is, so we personify it as something we do understand, spaceships. But in 1,000 years, it'll be something else. Just like 1,000 years ago, it was a chariot in the sky with fire coming out of it, because that's all we could understand at the time, was to compare it with our current technology.
Yes, is the Colombian expedition into the Bahamas. The shaman of the tribe were capable of perceiving the ships, but the rest of the tribes people couldn't. The ships were absolutely invisible to them, because they could not imagine that such a thing could possibly exist until the shaman helped them to see it.
Well, this is right up Ron's alley. When you listen to your shows and you talk about the programming, and so much of it often comes to things. I brought this up before, but the kids that were molested in LA, the way that they adapted the rooms that they did it in, they made things not be horizontal and vertical, and they affected the music, whether it played faster or slower. They changed it so that when they would relate the experience, it sounded like it was dreamlike, or it didn't really happen. It wasn't real.
A skewed perspective.
Yeah, and I wish you would input, Ron, because you have such knowledge about this. He's so quiet.
He's not there
I
for
don't
the
know if
moment.
he's there right now.
However, this reminds me of something that happened at a festival I was at after the music died down. The DJ did this meditation thing, and music comes down, and then all of a sudden these sound bowls start coming, and these sounds of birds and waterfalls and things like that. And she guides everybody through this meditation, and not the words she said, but the experience that we had. I talked to my mate Jackson right afterwards. I was like, "Hey, did that just happen to you too?" And he's like, "What?" And I described it to him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's exactly what happened, bro." And this is what happened. We were standing there, and she created this whirlpool on our right side that was running anti-clockwise. And into that whirlpool, it started to suck in all the negativity that we'd experienced through that year. This is a New Year's Eve festival, right? And on our left side, she created a whirlpool that was running clockwise. And into it, she drew in all this positivity and prospective hope for the future and the year to come. And then these two whirlpools turned into these waves that crashed into each other in front of us and then froze and shattered into a billion pieces of glittering mirror, poofed into golden dust. And then everybody just puffed that golden dust in and then released it.
Hello.
It was like really powerful experience, man. Like, whoa. I was thinking that's what everybody needs to be thinking about this year is getting all that negativity out and putting all the positivity in and giving ourselves a good new year to look forward to.
Yep. Hey, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left, so we need to kind of wrap things up. If there's anybody that never had the opportunity to ask a question or a comment, speak up now.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
It's like I think something that is so obvious that the reason I don't hear anyone saying it is because it's too obvious and we're not saying it out loud like, hey, water is wet. And it's about what we're going to, and this is kind of like a bottom line kind of thing, that when some people are trying to prevent World War III, how do we know that this isn't what's supposed to happen in the first place?
It'll happen even if people are trying to prevent it. I mean,
right? Yeah, I mean, if it's inevitable kind of thing, that
you can only delay.
Can I attempt to answer that?
Why is it considered so negative when certain people are like, oh, well, he's a war hawk and she's a war hawk, and I'm like, isn't this what's supposed to be happening in the first place? Isn't it? This is what we're going to Armageddon.
No, the basis here is violation of natural law, and the basic kind of tenet is that you cannot take that which does not belong to you. That's why you should fight against things that are inevitable just because they're wrong and just because that's the right thing to do. It needs no further justification. War is wrong. Well, you know,
playing a role.
No, I forget who said it, but the only war doesn't decide who wins; it only decides who's left. And everybody has to pick up the pieces. And we're talking about intergenerational abuse that's happening in families from war veterans that go over there, see horrible stuff, don't process it, come back, and they traumatize their children, and then they raise children of their own and that they traumatize, and then the next generation goes off to war, and the whole cycle just keeps repeating again. We're traumatizing these young men and women and turning them into the monsters that we all fear.
But I would also ask you, what exactly is, inevitability in regard to, let's say, a third world war? Because we think of that just like with plasma in the sky. There must be aliens, UFOs, crash retrieval programs must be aliens. Same kind of a thing with the concept of a third world war. It's like, well, what is Armageddon, the final battle? But what is the final battle? It's the battle between good and evil.
I grew up in that, dispensational truth sort of thing. We had that whole there's like this map or diagram that's in the book that is like a big fold out poster, and it has this whole entire from beginning to the end kind of thing, and then it has like where the church age is, and then when the tribulation starts, and the New Jerusalem and all that. And my dad would always point out, like, this is where we are right here in time. We're right here. We're during the church age, and it's all like inevitable. That when I hear people say, like, oh, like earlier I heard someone say, did I just vote for the Antichrist? And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, if we did, then because we're right here in the timeline, then eventually, inevitably, it's going to happen. And it's almost like, it's relief and regret and disappointment all at the same time, that when I found out George Bush wasn't the Antichrist, part of me was kind of like a little bit disappointed. Does that sound weird?
Well,
you sure he's not? But I mean, at the end of the day, what you're talking about. At the end of the day, what you're talking about, though, is when you define these terms, we talk about the end of the world, World War III, Armageddon, apocalypse. Like, these are, in my opinion, these are not literal terms. If you read Joseph Campbell, he explains that Israel is a symbolic representation. Manly Hall says the same thing. It means everybody, all of God's creation. Everybody is God's chosen people. When they talk about something like Armageddon, it's the battle between good and evil. That's something that is always occurring. When they talk about the apocalypse, that's Greek for unveiling. It's the lifting of the veil. The four horses are the four seasons. This is something that happens again every single year. When you talk about any of these concepts about the Third World War, the end of the world, it's again like applying our ideas of modern technology to what we're looking at in the sky and thinking that they must be aliens and spaceships. It's like applying our understanding of our lack of understanding of archetypes and myths and stories and symbols to real world events and trying to derive meaning from them and purpose to give ourselves and our belief systems validity is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's about storytelling, right? So I was thinking about this story that I was thinking about, that you have a ancient culture of humanity. It might be 100 million years old. And it's mastered all technology, and it's mastered how to manipulate the human mind and everything like that. And a group of these people get together and they decide that they're going to wipe the slate clean, make the entirety of humanity as ignorant as the day is long, and keep all the advanced technology and all the advanced knowledge for themselves. And then they've got the ability to transplant their consciousness into new bodies. So they just rebrand themselves every generation or so. They call themselves Julius Caesar. They call themselves Genghis Khan. And they rule from behind the scenes over and over again. And every now and again, they get exposed. People start to become suspicious of who they truly are. And they begin to rise up against them. And that's when they wipe the slate clean again.
When does a religion become a cult? When does a religion become a cult? Because more typically, people will go to war for...
All religions are cults.
Yeah.
Yes, the old saying goes
the
that
manipulator's tool.
The difference between a cult and a religion is the length of time it's been around.
Well,
that's what they say. But the thing is anytime you surround yourself with a charismatic figure and you worship and have all these rules and regulations, you're a cult. I mean, that's why the Catholic Church is a cult. That's why, people use the word cult as a bad thing. It's not. I mean, even going to work at a phone center is a cult. They use
anybody who's demanding
to do that
an amount
stuff.
of money from you for connection to God is a cult.
Well, we need to call it what it is, and that is a destructive cult. We can't just call things we don't like cults. It's a destructive cult. It's a destructive cult.
Got a minute left, guys. It's 10 o'clock, so we got to wrap it up. So,
can I just wrap this up by defining the cult very quickly? Cult is the first syllable in the word culture.
Right.
You ever heard of a drinking culture or a film culture or something of that nature? They're all cults. They use fluorescent lighting, repetition of meaningless tasks, a central authority figure, all these rules that must be obeyed, and a little silo mentality, so anybody who speaks up against it gets ostracized. They isolate you, they traumatize you, and then you become attached to them. That's how cults work, because you signed on the dotted line that you wanted a prize of some description. You wanted Donald Trump as president, now you've got him, and they've got important hooks into you, and they can obligate you to do things that you might not want to do, but you will, because you said that you agreed that you want the prize.
Hey guys, I totally agree. I'm a cult member of the Ground Zero cult,
There
I'm
you
gonna call
go.
myself a zero from now on,
Cult of Clyde.
and I totally appreciate you guys.
Well,
Let
we
me be a
appreciate
zero
you.
in your
Well,
clan, and cult. And
Yeah.
awesome,
Alrighty.
thank you guys.
All hail Clyde.
Hey, Clyde, you want to wrap it
All
up?
hail Clyde.
Yes, guys. Hey, thank you so much for being part of this. This is like an experiment that went well. I
hope
really
you
appreciate
do.
all the hosts that were here, all the listeners that were here. And this has been recorded, so if you want to review it, it will be on aftermath.media. Thank you all for being a part of the show. Thank you all for supporting the show. And we'll see you Monday.
We
That'll
love
be
you,
Monday.
Clyde.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We love you all.
Thank you. I hope we do it again.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. And remember, everybody, try not to get exterminated.
You got OBZ coming up?
Yeah.
OBZ, yeah.
Exterminate.
Pre-recorded OBZ, so be ready for it.
And then I got a new episode of The Secret Teachings right after that.
All right. What is it going to be about? Quick.
Stuff that's very controversial.
Okay. All right. We'll hear from you at 10:30 BC Pacific time.